This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
This table is really tilted.
Excuse me? Am I gonna get a chance to speak?
Maybe I should take that back.
Denied. Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Take a giant step for mankind.
Welcome to the Tilted Table with your hosts, Sean and Joe.
Folks, welcome to another episode of The Tilted Table, the internet's answer to a question that no one asked. I am Sean Kabibi.
And I am Joey Joe, the Fracky Mac.
And today, we are going to talk about television, movie characters, or maybe even, we haven't really filtered this out a whole lot.
Things that you can't get away with today.
Yeah, so I'm thinking characters or TV shows or movies that couldn't be made today, largely because they would be seen as offensive. Mm-hmm. I'd like to lean more on characters. I'm going to try to do that, and but this is also open to just full-on television shows or even movies. Like, they couldn't make that movie today, they couldn't do that TV show today, because it would be considered extremely offensive. And the ones that I picked things that this is stuff that we grew up on, that as a kid I'm watching these characters in these shows, and I never really saw it as being offensive. Looking in hindsight, I still don't think they're offensive, but again, I don't get offended that easily. But these are characters. I know that if somebody were to pitch these characters or these TV shows today, they would not fly. So yeah. And
I think so. You and I are classified within Gen X, right?
Yeah, we're both Gen X.
Yeah, and I think Gen X is there's a bunch of memes that float around as far as, like, you know, what boomers would look like is in one part of the picture versus, you know, or millennials are crying about something or too sensitive. And then you've got the picture of the Gen X person, like, sitting there drinking a martini with their feet up on the desk, just like totally unflappable. Because, you know, we, you know, is a lead into this. Like, as kids, you go to like a restaurant and your parents would say, hey, go get me a pack of cigarettes out of the vending machine. Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. Or you could go to the store, like, you know, the convenience store, and be like, you know, I'm being a little facetious here, but you could take a note from your parents.
Yeah, we did that.
That knew the store owner, and get like a 6-pack of beer. You'd be like 10 years old, and it wasn't
a big deal.
No, it wasn't a big deal at all. It was like, you know, there was trust. People had a lot of respect for people. People understood that, you know, you got to lighten up and have a sense of humor. So the things that we're going to talk about today, I think, are going to be hilarious. And I honestly, I don't get offended over these things. So
no. I think Gen X is a generation that really falls in between a kind of a sweet spot. We weren't as stodgy as the boomers, but we're not as sensitive as a millennial or a Gen Zer or an alpha or whatever. So this stuff didn't bother us. But I think what you're talking about, like, we were given fairly big adult responsibilities at a young age. And I'm saying, like, the whole idea that your parents would say, here's a note, take your bike 2 miles down to the store and go get me a 6-pack. And you would just do it.
Yeah, no question.
Wasn't a big deal. So, but it was also the same generation that on Saturday, your parents are kicking you out of the house saying, get your bike and go play with your friends. But again, it's like there's no cell phones. So if you call your friends up on the phone and, you know, you get like a parent, like, oh, it's Stevie there. No, he's not. Do you know where he's at? I think he might be over at Rob's house. So you're like, you don't know what the fuck's going on. You got on your bike and you started riding to all your friends' house, knocking on doors. And then people just directed you to other places, and eventually you found your friends. And you had no ID, no phone, no nothing. And your parents come back when the street lights come on.
Yeah, life was good. Yeah. Freedom.
So I think, we're thick-skinned. But we're also, I think, a little more progressive than the boomers. I think we're the first generation that, you know, you met a gay kid and your attitude was like, well, I don't give a shit if you're gay. Like, it didn't matter to us. Like, so I think that these types of characters wouldn't have offended us back then, and they certainly don't offend us now.
Right.
So, yeah. Do you want to start?
Oh, no, I got this one, man.
Okay.
It happens. This is very easy for me because it happens to be my mom's all-time favorite movie. You know, I can tell you, if you were to ask me, what movie have you seen more than 20 times? I mean,
Shit.
I'd narrow that down.
And knowing my movie prowess, it's probably a movie I've never seen. But go ahead.
Oh, you've seen this one.
Okay.
But I could probably count the number of movies I've seen that number of times on two hands.
Okay.
Blazing Saddles.
Oh yeah, legendary.
Legendary, yeah.
God, there's a lot of offensive shit in that film. Well, at least stuff that wouldn't fly today.
But everybody was having fun with it and taking the humor in stride and knowing that it was a joke.
Yeah.
And not taking, internalizing things and as like, oh, could you get a little deeper into whatever the comment was? Well,
yeah, and I don't know how much we should explain what these movies are. I'm assuming people probably know them. But Blazing Saddles was a heavy satire, kind of like I know there's the new Naked Guns coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what kind of that.
So this is like 1974.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just extremely over the top satire comedy. It's not meant to be even real. Like it's just one over the top joke after another. And they're usually very, very punchy jokes, very trying to cross lines. And that movie does it.
Well, and it was done on purpose. So
yeah, it's the whole idea.
A black sheriff gets appointed to a racist town.
Yeah.
And then, hilarity ensues after that. And Gene Wilder, famous for Willy Wonka, he was the Waco Kid, a washed-up gunfighter.
Yeah.
And, I thought that movie was fantastic.
And it's funny. It's considered like just a classic comedy.
Yes.
But it's so classic that it somehow has been able to avoid getting hit too hard or canceled. I don't know. I don't think you can cancel Blazing Saddles.
But it's one of those that, you're not going to be seeing, being at the airport on the TV in the bar.
Yeah, they're not going to show it.
They're not going to show that.
They're not going to show that one. Yeah. All right, cool. That's a good one, man. I like that one. That's a classic film. If people have never seen it, they should see that one.
100%.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a character. There's two characters that are nearly identical on my list, two different shows, actually two different time frames, but they're largely the same character. So I'm going to go with Bernie Stinson from How I Met Your Mother.
I never saw that show.
There we go. I knew I was going to throw one at you hadn't seen. So, How I Met Your Mother, the concept of the show, and you've never seen it?
Never, I mean, I know what it is, but
you know the premise?
No.
Okay, so and it's actually an interesting premise. So the whole series is supposed to be a flashback. So the show starts with these two kids and just a voice, like a dad talking to the kids, and he's telling these kids this is how I met your mom. And so from each season, it's supposed to be the story of this guy. His name is Ted. And it's a typical 90s sitcom, very frenzy style, a little more racier than that. And just the journey of these characters, all supposed to be the telling of the story of how Ted met these kids' mother. So the main character struggles every season. He's trying to find, a wife, a girlfriend, a typical 90s sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
And every time he meets a woman and there's a relationship developing and all the hilarity happens, you think like, well, is that the mother? Right? But it's not. And so it's a big reveal at the end about who the mother is, whatever. A lot of people didn't like the ending. I thought it was good. It wasn't a show I watched religiously, but I'd seen a lot of the episodes.
Okay.
So Neil Patrick Harris played Bernie Stinson. He's part of the friend group, and he's this over-the-top womanizer. And I mean, when I say over-the-top womanizer, the scenes with him and how he would trap girls into sleeping with him, this would not fly today. It is completely just, a borderline aggressive, rapey kind of, rapey wrapped in a funny package. Yeah, Bernie Stinson. And if people know what I'm talking about, they look at that character and like, yeah, you put that character on TV today, it's not going to fly.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't act the way he acted towards women. Women were nothing more than fuck bunnies, and that's all they were good for. And he worked and said and did whatever he had to do to trick girls into sleeping with him, outside of borderline spiking drinks.
Wow. Okay.
And didn't do that, but damn, came close to doing shit like that.
I say that covers the whole spectrum right there.
Yeah. So Barney Stinson would be on my list of a character you could not put on television today.
Okay. Well, so one of my other choices here, I mean, this is an easy layup. This show was always on when so my family's all from Portugal and from the islands. And so growing up, when we go over to like the great aunt or great uncle's houses, it was, classic early 80s, everybody smoked inside. There was like, when you walked in the door, there was like a 3-foot layer of smoke on the inside of the house, like just hovering under the ceiling. shag carpeting, and my the great aunts would all be in the kitchen, chain smoking cigarettes.
And there had to be at least one countertop in your house that was pea green or
100%. 100%. Yep. And shag carpeting, and with their
that could have been pea green
in their raspy voices. It sounded like old gunslinger alcoholic, and like, kids, go in the living room, watch TV.
Yeah.
And it was always All in the Family.
Mm-hmm.
Archie Bunker.
Yeah, Archie Bunker was insane. So, All in the Family, legendary show, and still revered today. And I think big time labeled as being very helpful with race relations, even though the character of Archie Bunker was an old white racist.
Mm-hmm.
And they broke major ground with that show.
Yep.
Could you create Archie Bunker today and put him on the air? I don't think so. But there was something endearing about Archie. Even though he was this old racist, the shows always were about not being Archie Bunker.
Right.
Right. So it was actually the writing on that show was really good. That the star of the show is this staunchy old racist guy that said, and he said you could not say the shit he said back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And but he came across as being very ignorant and short-sighted. And at the end of the day, Carol O'Connor, the actor who played Archie Bunker, who was the exact opposite of the character, really wanted to lean in that the show was, I want the character to be basically so racist that it actually has the opposite effect.
Mm-hmm.
And, we learn something each week about race relations and about Archie Bunker. And the thing is that with that kind of idea in mind, we're supposed to hate Archie Bunker, but we really don't hate Archie Bunker. It was more like he's this stodgy old guy, more like you kind of feel sorry for him. And he was a nice guy at heart.
Yep.
He just was, he was racist. I don't know how to describe it. You have to really watch it to understand it.
Yeah, and I think the phrase to describe him would be the angry man prototype.
Yeah.
Would be the phrase. But yeah, and that's definitely a show you could not get away with today, but groundbreaking. And I think it's even, you go so far as to say that show is in the fabric of Americana.
Yeah, and it was the show that spun off to the Jeffersons.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the Jeffersons were it was a sitcom about a rich black couple, and
moving on up.
Yeah, so they were the American dream, and they were black, and it was the late 70s and early 80s, and the George Jefferson owned a dry cleaners. And George Jefferson was a racist. He didn't like white people. Yep. So they did a pretty good job. And that was a really successful show, too. Mm-hmm. I think people really liked Sherman Hemsley when he did George Jefferson. And, he did call everybody honky. Shut up, honky. Right? He was great. Yeah. So as a kid watching those shows, I never felt that any of the stuff was uncomfortable or weird. That was funny.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Again, I think Gen Xers, again, we had... I think we're at the start of the progressive nature where we weren't offended by this type of stuff. And I think we saw this stuff as like, well, it's being kind of addressed and exposed. And sometimes you should tell a honky to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you take it at face value.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Archie Bunker, All in the Family, that's great. All right, so I'm going to bounce on one that I think you will recognize, hopefully will recognize. I think a character that couldn't exist today, and I'm talking about really in the last couple of years, I don't think this character would fly. This is Pat from Saturday Night Live.
That's a good choice. That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I don't. You have all of the purple blue hair people up in arms.
Yeah, this would be a real problem. So people don't know the character. It's a skit on Saturday Night Live. I think it was early 2000s or late 90s, maybe the aughts, 2001, 2002, somewhere in there. So the character, the whole shtick with this character was it was a character named Pat that was extremely androgynous. You couldn't tell whether Pat was a male or a female. And every skit was that the people who are working with Pat or around Pat can't figure it out, and the whole skit is them asking questions to try to get an answer that would clearly define whether Pat was a man or a woman. And of course, every answer was equally as androgynous, and they could never get a damn answer.
Did they ever figure it out?
I don't think they ever did.
Oh.
But it would be like it'd be like in a work lounge or whatever on break. And everybody's just like, hey, Pat, what's up? Oh, hey, what's going on? It's like, what you going to do this week? And you going out with somebody? Or you got a date? And then Pat would give some answer. There was like waiting to figure out, like, is he going to say it's a female or a male and give us a clear indication? And it just never happened. And the more they tried to ask questions to get Pat to say something that would indicate whether they were a male, it never happened.
You're right. I mean, I in the whole realm of Saturday Night Live, if you were to say, give me the top 5 iconic skits that they've done, I would put Pat in top 5.
I wouldn't put Pat in the top 5. I think it's a little bit after my era. I thought it was funny. I would choose other things. But as far as characters go, I would say top 10. Maybe not my top 5. Okay. But yeah, I don't think you could do that character today. People would get really offended. Obviously we're about pronouns and all these different things. And this is something that is supposed to be clarified. So if you were to walk into a place and you were unclear as to whether a person was male, female, maybe trans, or it's some level of transition, or whether they were non-binary, or whatever, however they identify as, you're supposed to ask them, oh, I'm Sean, how nice to meet you. Oh, I'm, their name, and you might ask them, like, I just don't want to get, how do you identify? Oh, I identify as they, them, I'm non-binary, and then you're supposed to ask these questions. You're looking at me like that's not the case. Hey, I was taught that's what we do in school. We ask.
Oh, yeah. Well, we could go off down the whole rabbit trail in that conversation, but that's
my
not
point. My point being that the whole concept of Pat, where people dancing around trying to figure out whether or not this person is a male or female, and I think that I don't think this character would rule today. I think some people would have some real problems with the character itself and with the way that people are handling the situation.
Yes,
that was my point. I wasn't trying to get into a debate about pronouns. Maybe I should have left Pat off my goddamn list.
That was a great choice, though.
No.
So this was more recent, and it's still on. But I don't. So in 1999, South Park had a movie called Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Oh god.
I don't think you could do that movie today. Even as outlandish and extreme as South Park, and I like South Park. I think it's funny. I mean, some of the things I think that they hit on are for me sensitive, but it's like, well, they hit on everybody's sensitive stuff. So irreverence is the name of the game.
Okay, go ahead.
But could they redo that 1999 movie today? I think it would be if that movie was at, like, say, at 12, they would have to put out a movie at like a 7.
Right. I disagree 100%. You could put that movie out today and it would be perfectly fine, and I'll tell you why. Because South Park is still putting out episodes that are over the top offensive, and they don't get too much shit. I mean, people that don't like South Park don't like South Park because of its content. That's fine, but they've never been full on like, we're going to cancel you. This has to stop. And I'll tell you why. Bill Burr once said in an interview that he did an animated series called F is for Family. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so he did. It ran for like 4 or 5 seasons on Netflix. And they interviewed him when the show was coming out, and he made a comment that in his career as a comedian, that especially in the 90s, comedians were getting all these sitcoms, and that he had was tagged to be in a sitcom. The sitcom was called Playing Chicken, and the concept was it would be 2 brothers that owned, I think, a bar, and one brother is a staunch conservative, and the other brother is a hardcore liberal, but one of the brothers is in a wheelchair because he played chicken one night with another car and he lost. Okay. Right? So they were, the show was put together, and he talks about how it was pitched to a network. So this would have been late 90s, early 2000s. And the network just said, the pilot, whatever, they didn't shoot a pilot. I don't know, maybe they did shoot a pilot, but whatever was presented as the first episode, second episode, they were just like, no way. This is way too politically incorrect. We can't put this on TV. And so when he was doing F is for Family, he said, F is for Family is the type of show I would have wanted to have done, but there's no way it would have ever gotten on the air. I realized when The Simpsons came out, and when South Park came out, and when Family Guy came out, for whatever reason, if it's animated people, you can be over the top offensive and no one seems to care. But if you were to take that same exact show same lines, same characters, and make them real people and turn it into a typical sitcom, it would be shut down immediately, right?
Right.
So that's why I'm saying I think South Park movie today could come out because, one, they're still as offensive as they've always been, and they're not canceled. And I don't see that movie being any more over the top than much of the other things that they've done, and it's animated. Now, you made that movie with real people, they ain't coming out.
Right.
Now, this is my theory. I might be wrong.
No, I think that's a great observation.
No. Cartoons get away with murder for whatever reason.
Facts.
Especially really poorly, animated cartoons, which is South Park is, it looks like shit, but
Yes.
that's the point.
That is the point. Yeah. No, that's good, man. What do you think?
This is actually a good episode because we've actually quasi at least played around with Pat. We had a little bit not on exactly the same page with everything about we were talking about Pat. We're not on the same page about South Park's movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Leave a like on the video. I know you're enjoying this. Can you shut up?
The internet's answer to a question that was never asked. The Tilted Table with Sean and Joe.
Okay, so tell me what you think of Married with Children. Do you think they could do that today?
No, I don't think so. I don't even have it on my list. It was one of my favorite shows. I should have put that on my list. No, I don't think that show. I think the show will get canceled. Yeah. I mean, every character was a stereotype of just shitbag behavior. And, it was extremely sexist show. The women on that show, again, there was really only the family. And anytime they brought a woman in, it was always some ditzy stripper type chick that Al Bundy was trying to, feel up on. He didn't, he's a pathetic, middle-aged, worn down husband. So he never even would hit on these chicks. He would want to touch him or grab him. So he just, get around him and, get all, horny about it and want to touch. Just the whole show. That show would never fly today, especially with Kelly. The daughter was, slut, sleeping with a bunch of guys. Her boyfriends would come over, a bunch of stereotypical long-haired douchebags.
Right.
She's been plowed through hundreds of times. And of course, Bud Bundy, there were so many masturbation jokes with the younger brother because he couldn't get any. He spent the entire show trying to get laid, and it was always just finding rags and and lotions and Vaseline everywhere because the guy was nonstop jerking off. I don't think it would fly today. It was one of my favorite shows. It's funny.
For the time, it was definitely cutting edge because it ran for 11 seasons?
11 seasons.
And it started in 1987?
I think 88.
Okay.
Yeah. Could have been 87.
And back then, like everybody, thought it was funny. We weren't allowed to watch it as kids.
I watched it every week, but your parents are a little bit different than mine.
Yeah. The understatement. Understatement.
I love that show. I don't think my parents were particularly offended by it. And again, because I think what offended my parents would have been stuff like out and out bad language, nudity. Those were the things my parents would be like, no way. Kind of like, again, this is still network television. It wasn't like it was super, super offensive or they were doing crazy, crazy shit.
Right.
I don't think they found the sort of dysfunctional, screwed up family, and as being that offensive. I don't think they thought like, oh, well, one of the characters is, a loose girl that's having sex with a bunch of guys, and she's a ditzy girl and dumb. That wouldn't have offended them. No more than, the sex-starved virgin that, spends his days trying to get girls to have sex with them to fail every time, and and every masturbation joke, and Al being the burnt-out husband that doesn't want to have sex with his wife, and she's, just a non-helpful housewife that doesn't work, doesn't cook, doesn't clean, just sits there and bitches to her husband about whatever she wants to bitch about. It was funny. The characters are funny.
Yeah.
But I don't think my parents would have. That's not something that would have thrown them. It would have had to be outward nudity, cussing, violence, not those kinds of shows.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a great choice. I don't think that show could be made today. I think a lot of people would have a big problem with it. Yeah. I'm gonna throw out another character from a show, this is one I think you're going to be familiar with. I assume you're going to be familiar with it. Is Dan Fielding from Night Court?
See, okay, I know who you're talking about, but I never watched that.
Okay, so you never seen the show?
One time,
Damn.
years ago.
Well, okay.
So, but no, I do want to hear this.
So Night Court was in the 80s. It ran for maybe 7 or 8 seasons. It was a pretty popular show. And the premise of Night Court, it's a New York courtroom that operates at night, which is obviously something that doesn't exist. But they have this judge. I can't remember his name was Harry. The actor was Harry Anderson, and he was a real popular kind of character actor. And this was his a chance to do a leading role. And so he's the main judge. And of course, you have the lawyers that work there, and the bailiff, and the various characters in the courtroom. And of course, because the court's being held at night, every person being drug in is just the worst.
Was it
human
real?
being. No, it's just a sitcom.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the whole point is. There is no such thing as night court. It's ridiculous that that they would have court at night. So it's like the late shift. So everybody that comes in, because the only people that would work at a night court are the shittiest lawyers. The kind of Harry played the sort of the rebel judge. That's why he'd probably get assigned the shitty night court job, right?
Right.
So Dan Fielding was one of the lawyers. It was played by a guy named John Larroquette, and he was just this conniving, womanizing a dirtbag. Think of like Don Draper from Mad Men, but sitcom style. And he was very much like Barney Stinson. That's why I said I had two characters that are almost identical, just different decades. All he did in the show was accost women verbally. And everything he said to them was a sexual innuendo to get them, to say that he wants to bang them. And yeah, he would do very similar things. Not as bad as Barney. Again, this is the 80s versus like the 90s. You got away with a lot more with Barney did some shit. And How I Met Your Mother was way more over the top. Night Court at least tried to stay in a realm of realism that like Dan Fielding not only could exist, Dan Fielding does exist in a lot of different places. And so that character would never fly today. And again, I don't think that Dan Fielding, I don't remember an episode where whatever shit was coming out of his mouth, even if it was a scene that didn't involve him trying to hit on a girl, it could have been a scene about something else, and it could be something relatively serious, he still would have to interject some sort of sexist-ass comment about women if he wasn't even just interjecting how he wants to bang a chick. Some character.
Is this show on like any of these channels streaming so you can go back and revisit them?
I'm sure it is. It was a very popular show, and they rebooted it with Dan Fielding. Harry Anderson, the actor,
really?
Harry Anderson, the guy who played the judge, he died about just 10 or 15 years ago, so he's not part of the reboot. I think it centers on Dan Fielding more than anything because a lot of those actors are dead now. He's one of the few ones that are still alive.
Okay, yeah.
So they rebooted it. I don't know how long it lasted. I'm assuming it was on Hulu or Netflix or some streaming service. But they rebooted it. They brought Night Court back.
Looks like Amazon Prime. I just looked this up.
Yeah. I've never seen any of the new episodes. I don't know. I mean, in this day and age, I just said you couldn't do Dan Fielding today, and they apparently are. But I bet you his character has largely changed. He cannot be the same character.
I'm actually going to go back and watch a couple of these episodes just so I can experience this part of Americana. Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, that's super interesting. This is going to be another easy layup. You definitely couldn't. Well, could you redo Jerry Springer?
I think that if you look at the amount of just disgusting trolling trash that's on the internet, that doesn't seem to offend people.
No.
So why would people getting on stage and... Well, I think the other thing about Jerry Springer is that we all know that it was mostly fabricated. So maybe we think it's not real. It's just trash TV. Or maybe because people think it is real. Like, well, how can you cancel real life? Like if like, my brother's been sleeping with my wife and my wife's stepkid. Or just like whatever, like people perceive these things to be real and they don't cancel it because it's like, well, this is just reality, which is not. I mean, a lot of it was fabricated. To a certain extent, but it's a good question. Those types of talk shows really don't exist.
No, none of them do.
No. But I don't know if talk shows really exist as much at all anymore. Because
I don't think so. Because I mean, that was like Montel Williams, Sally Jesse, Ricky Lake.
Yeah, we kind of get it with reality TV now.
I think
that's what's replaced it.
Podcast is probably the new version of like those kind of interview shows.
Yeah, you get some. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's for sure. And I think reality TV is taken. You want dysfunctional people that just talk shit and fight each other, and they're all just shitty behavior and shitty people. Reality TV's got you covered in a number of different ways. For sure.
I think another fun age check on people is if you just like randomly shout out Jerry, right? And it's the people that will chime in or be like, "Oh man, that was terrible." Then you know like their age bracket, to be able to understand what that is. And if people are like, "What are you talking about?" You're like, "Yeah, you're way too young. You were born after the year 2000."
Yeah. Jerry Springer, I don't know if this is true. I wish somebody, I could look it up right now, but I understand that on his deathbed, he apologized to America for ruining American culture. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that. There's a Netflix special that came out like 6 or 7 months ago that was all about like behind the scenes of the Jerry Springer show. And they mentioned that.
Yeah. I don't know if he's being genuine or if he's trolling. Jerry Springer was a tricky dude to figure out. It was hard to tell how serious he was about anything. Very intelligent man. He's a lawyer. He was the mayor of Cincinnati prior to doing a show. But again, even on the show, it was hard to tell how much of this he's supporting, not supporting. I mean, he's making money. One thing about Jerry Springer, and I don't care what you say, he's a capitalist. He exploited people for money. Maybe he did have genuine regret about it. Like, I helped destroy American culture in his eyes. Whether or not you believe American culture is destroyed, a lot of people really do believe that. I don't. I'm more of an optimist. I think that this kind of shit's been going on for centuries.
Oh,
yeah. We have internet now. We get to see a lot more of it.
Exactly.
So we think things are getting worse, and I really don't think they are.
No.
I'm a big supporter of touching grass, and that's an idea of going outside and actually joining the real world. And I'm out a lot. And the stuff that I see on the internet in terms of the way people act and the way they talk and the things they do, and the stuff I see on TV, I just don't see it in real life. Rarely do I see people that say these things, act this way, do these things. So I think that we are getting a microcosm of humanity through the internet, and you see that all the time, and that's all you see. You really believe that this is where we're headed.
Right.
And I think that what you saw on the Jerry Springer show was, first of all, again, a lot of it was fabricated, but a very small sector of humanity that's given a platform to put their bullshit out there. And again, if you watch Jerry Springer every day and that's all you're seeing, you may really believe that this is what's going on. And in reality, it's a very small percentage of people that are like this.
Oh, for sure.
So I don't know if Jerry Springer ruined American culture.
Yeah.
If you ask me, he didn't ruin it. The fucking internet and social media is ruining American culture more than anything.
Yeah. If anything, Springer just basically turned the light on in the room.
Yeah.
It's always been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still remember I didn't even know who the Klan was. That's how I found out as a kid who the Klan was, as I turned on Jerry Springer when my mom wasn't looking, and I'm like, who are these fools in the hood?
Right. See, I was more exposed to the Klan through Morton Downey Jr. show, which is classic. We've had this conversation. Yeah. You couldn't have that show on today. He's the original Jerry Springer. If you've never heard of Morton Downey Jr., you should look him up. It's basically the Jerry Springer show. The only difference is Morton Downey Jr. with a cigarette dangling from his mouth would interact with the guests and would scream in their face and call them dirtbags and shit faces and kick them off his show. He was amazing. But again, it's trash TV. He's the original Jerry Springer, in my opinion. So I remember seeing KKK on his show. I remember seeing KKK like on Phil Donahue and Geraldo, and this stuff was around. Those were a little more legitimate shows. And Morton Downey Jr. and Jerry Springer were just trash.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to throw out another character, and I seem to be developing a pattern here between Dan Fielding and Barney Stinson, and I think you'll recognize this character. It's from a newer show. I'm going to go with Todd Packer from The Office.
Who? What?
You watch The Office?
No, I watched The Office. I'm trying to remember who was the
bald, sexist.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. Yep. I agree. I don't think that
he was still fairly a minor character. I think he was only around. I think he popped in most seasons at one point or another, and he would just come in with the dirtiest jokes, just a filthy
traveling salesman.
Yeah, just an absolute dirt bag. Very similar to Stinson, but I mean, it's The Office, so he came across as being a lot more mean. Even Dan Fielding, it's the 80s, it was comical. He was a dirtbag, but he was comical.
Right.
You know, and
He doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He's just trying to be funny, like that type of
Yeah, and you know, Barney Stinson was a lovable guy. He was a womanizer and a nymphomaniac, and he was manipulative, but Barney at the end of the day was a pretty good guy. Todd Packer is a fucking prick, dick, asshole, womanizing piece of shit. And there's nothing to like about Todd Packer. And what I like about Todd Packer is he's completely unaware of just how hated he is by everybody.
I just hopped on Wikipedia, and it's literally, that's the very first thing that pops up, is notorious for his offensive humor.
Yeah, the only person that liked him was Steve Carell's character, Mike Scott, because Mike Scott's oblivious and stupid enough. You know, hey, Pac-Man. He calls him the Pac-Man. But even there's a couple of times where I think even, you know, Michael Scott was like, oh, shit, like, what is this guy doing?
Well, I think, and I just clicked on something, and you probably watched this episode. This one doesn't ring a bell. It says there was an episode that was called The Disgusting Thing, which implied that there is human feces left in Michael Scott's office. And then the episode was about Michael Scott trying to discover who did it. And apparently it was
Todd.
Your boy, Todd Packer.
Todd Packer, baby. Yeah, I mean, The Office is a classic show. I don't care what anybody says.
What do you think about... I think this show could be done. I remember when it first came out, like, again, we weren't allowed to watch it, but Roseanne.
Oh, man, that is a great show. I consider that to be maybe one of the best sitcoms ever created. It was the first sitcom really where the situations were extremely realistic. The people, main characters had no money and struggled with money were a big part of it. And the reason I say this is because if you look at Friends, one of the criticisms of Friends is that they were all living in these New York apartments that were gigantic. These places would cost $4,000 or $5,000 a month, but yet none of these motherfuckers had jobs that could warrant these types of places. They didn't have those kinds of struggles. They had, quote unquote, money struggles, but they weren't real money struggles, right? They had some stupid thing that they couldn't afford, but by the fact they're living in these massive New York apartments and they're all dressed in fairly nice clothes. Roseanne was largely about money troubles. The characters were not attractive. You have this overweight, you know, Roseanne, John Goodman, the overweight husband. The kids had real problems. They did a really good job of drawing this weird kind of line between it. It was a really funny show, but it was also very serious in a lot of ways. And the situations they were in were very realistic. I think it's probably the only sitcom that truly was probably realistic. Like you could look at these characters and say, like, these are like real people. This is real situations. Yeah. So I loved Roseanne. Now, a lot of Roseanne's humor, yeah, I don't know if it would fly today. But they dealt with stuff. When was that show on? Like late 80s into the 90s?
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot of episodes that dealt with things like homosexuality, racism, and how they would deal with it. I think there was one episode where one of the daughters brings home a black boyfriend, and the whole kind of like, the idea that like the Connors weren't racist, but they also weren't that exposed to black, America. So there's this weird uncomfortability in the episode where they're trying to figure out, well, maybe they are racist, or how should they feel about this, or why do they feel weird about it? Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. So there's a lot of stuff on that show. I think it could still fly today. I mean, they had the Connors. I never saw the Connors. I mean, they fired Roseanne because she came out with some racist statements, so we obviously know how Roseanne feels. But yeah, I think that show could still stand today. I think it could still play today.
Is it worth, and everything that I've read about Roseanne is exactly what you just said, one of the best written shows in television history.
Easily.
Do you think it's worth going back and watching it? Like I don't think I've ever saw a single episode.
Yeah, I think you'd like it.
Okay.
It's quality, for sure.
I'm going to add that to my list then.
Yeah. I like the show. I was a big fan of Roseanne. Just the realism.
Well, and I love following her today on X. Like, she's absolutely hilarious.
She's absolutely fucking insane.
A wicked sense of humor.
Oh, that is a woman that never gave a fuck.
Yep.
And got a lot of fame from her comedy, and became one of the biggest, TV stars for at least a decade. And when that ended, She bought like a pot farm somewhere. She became like super like weird Green Party libertarian. She even ran for president a couple times on a third party ticket.
Yep.
And and even she's never pulled any punches. She's not going to go on a late night talk show and with the scripted questions. So how's it going, Roseanne? Oh, it's going great. And it's like, no, she would never do any of that shit. She'd sit there and just say the most insane shit. And if she thought if something was phony or bullshit, she'd fucking just call it out.
Well, one of the things
she couldn't be on TV, didn't she? Yeah, she said some racist shit on some social media, and she got kicked off the Connors.
Well, during this last election cycle, she was on or interviewed by Tucker, and it was funny. Cookie and I were watching it, and I'm just laughing hysterically at her commentary, and she reaches over and there's this little side table, and she grabs like a pack of cigarettes and pulls one out and lights it up and just keeps on talking. And I looked over at Cookie. I'm like, when's the last time on any show ever we've seen someone like light a cigarette? Yeah. I actually really appreciate seeing that level of humanity because that happens every day.
Yeah. I mean, Roseanne is legendary.
She does not care.
Yeah, she does not give a fuck. She doesn't care what you think.
Nope. And I love her for that.
Yeah. Can't disagree with that.
Mm-hmm. Good idea for this episode, man.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. There's so many. It's sad because I think that we become sanitized to a certain extent that a lot of great ideas, and I think I'll harken it back to All in the Family, where really skilled writing, whether it's a TV show or a movie or whatever it is, can use a lot of tropes, a lot of stereotypes, a lot of racy language or shit that crosses lines. And not to do it just to disparage anybody or to make fun of people, but it's designed to actually help us understand things better and make makes us a more tolerant and accepting society.
You can write in lessons. It's kind of like I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and that was the neat thing about I'll pick Next Generation specifically is there was always a lesson. To be learned, and it wasn't like preachy about it. It was like, oh, there's a moral of a story in here, and it's pretty easy to see what it is without getting all up in my grill, with trying to deliver whatever the message is. So.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the bigger problems with entertainment today is that I think they're still trying to do what was done in the 60s, 70s, and 80s into the 90s, but they either don't know how to do it or they think that this is a better way to approach it. You can teach all of these types of lessons without having it shoved in your face, shoved down your throat, because when you do it that way, people don't want to listen.
Yep.
And again, if you were to bring Archie Bunker to a meeting and say, hey, I got this idea for a show and this is the character, they would immediately shut it down because of what it is without really understanding that this is the character that's going to deliver the message that you are actually trying to deliver. And it will be delivered in a way that people will actually hear it.
Yes.
Right? And versus what you're doing today, which is shoving it down people's throats or really pressuring people into like, you need to think this way or you got to accept these types of things. And you're never going to win any support doing it that way. It just doesn't work. And again, this is why Gen X, I think, are probably the most practical and the most tolerant of the generations because I think we were taught these lessons the correct way.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, very well said, man. I appreciate that commentary, and we all
thank you.
And we all have a sense of humor too. It's like you don't take it personally. You don't have to appease everyone. Difference is what makes the world go round. And yeah.
Again, I always tell people you don't have to like something, but you have to be tolerant of it. Bottom line, if somebody's doing something that is not affecting anybody else, and you disagree with it. That doesn't give you a right to go and force them to think the way that you think. Mm-hmm. You tolerate it. I don't agree with it, but that's fine. As long as you're not hurting other people, you're free to think any way you want. And I might disagree with you, and I might think you're a piece of shit because of the way that you think. And that's where it starts, and that's where it ends.
Yeah. Well, again, great idea for this. And I am going to go watch some Night Court, and I do want to visit for the first time. Roseanne.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Wow, that was kind of a heavy ending to the episode.
I have an important announcement for you, so stay tuned.
Yo, that's some next level shit, bruh. So you got me. Big deal.
The internet's answer to a question no one asked. The Tilted Table with Sean and Joe.
Folks, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Tilted Table, the internet's answer to a question that no one asked. I am Sean Kabibi.
And I am Joey Joe with the Fracky Mac.
And you can find us on all major social media platforms at The Tilted Table 1. Like, subscribe, ring bells, send emails, whatever.
Yeah, we'd like to hear from you. If there's any super fun conversation topics you want to hear me and Kabibi-san talk about, like, hit us up.
Yeah, I'm in.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Peace.